Welcome to Games and Tales, the channel where horror comes alive through stories and video games. Today, we'll dive into the scariest experiences people have had using the Ouija board. If you love creepy stories and survival horror gameplay, don't forget to hit that subscribe button and join our growing community. Get ready, because these tales might make you think twice before trying to summon spirits for fun. Story 1. The basement door that shouldn't have moved. Okay, here goes my first story. I still get chills remembering it. So, me and 3 of my friends used to hang out at my friend Ryan's place. Ryan had this basement that was basically our little hideout. It had a pool table, a dartboard, and a beat-up old bar. But there was one really annoying thing about that basement. The door at the bottom of the stairs was completely swollen from years of water damage. It had scraped the floor so much it carved a groove into it, and closing it was nearly impossible. We usually just left it open because it would get jammed if you tried. Anyway, one night we were messing around with a spirit board down there, being silly with the lights off. Nothing really happened, just us giggling and teasing each other. After about 15 minutes, Ryan's mom yelled down to tell him dinner was ready. He ignored her, of course. Typical Ryan. About 5 minutes later, we heard her stomping across the floor upstairs, totally furious. She got to the top of the basement stairs and shouted, "Ryan, come up for dinner right now." Ryan called back, "Hang on, 2 more minutes." Then she snapped, "Don't just stand there at the bottom of the stairs, get up here." And that's the part that made my heart stop. We were all sitting way across the basement, around the bar, nowhere near the stairs. There was no way she could have seen Ryan from where she was. Ryan yelled back, "Mom, we're at the bar." The second he finished saying bar, the swollen basement door, the one nobody could ever close, suddenly slammed shut with this violent, angry force. It was so loud I felt it in my chest. We went from laughing to full-on screaming in 2 seconds flat. When we tried to open the door, it was completely stuck. Ryan's dad had to break in through the basement window and kick the door open from the inside. I never went back to Ryan's after that. Sometimes we play around with things we don't fully understand just for a laugh, but you never know what's listening. Maybe that night, something in the basement wanted to remind us it was still there. Story 2. The rabbit on the board. When I was about 14, I lived in a pretty remote part of Alaska, surrounded by endless woods and freezing winds. One of my closest friends, Natalie, lived out even further than me in this old trailer that was practically falling apart. The walls were warped, the pipes never worked right, and the windows would freeze up from the inside like something out of a horror movie. Because Natalie's mom worked late at a bar, sometimes not getting home until after 4 in the morning, she was on her own a lot. Which is how we ended up hanging out there all the time, even though the place always felt a bit off. One night, Natalie's boyfriend showed up with a Ouija board and dared us to play. Most of the group tried to act all tough, but I've always been a total coward about that stuff. I couldn't even work up the guts to say Bloody Mary in the mirror, so there was no way I was going near that board. Instead, I slipped away to the back room where they kept their rabbits. They raised them for meat and fur, which sounds harsh, but it was just how they lived. Natalie's little sister came with me, so we hung out with the rabbits while the others goofed around. Sometimes we'd hear a scream or a nervous laugh from the living room, but mostly we ignored it. Then Natalie came barging in, giggling like crazy, holding the Ouija board. She grabbed one of the smaller rabbits and, laughing, set it right on top of the planchette. I wanted to yell at her to stop, but before I could, it happened. The rabbit sat still for a second, then suddenly rolled over, completely limp. It was dead. Rabbits can literally die of fear, their hearts just give out. But the timing was horrifying, like the board had demanded a sacrifice. Natalie tried to explain that they'd asked the spirit to prove its strength, but she'd never believed it would actually do anything. I completely lost it. I called my mom, told her I would walk through the snow and the moose and the pitch-black night if she didn't come get me right away. I left that trailer and didn't go back for months. Even after summer returned with the sun barely setting at all, I only visited in daylight, and never again during winter. That place still gives me the worst kind of chills. Strange how something meant to be a joke can twist into a nightmare before you even realize it. When you mess with things you don't understand, whether spirits or fears, the consequences can be real, even if you think you're just playing around. Some places hold on to that darkness, and sometimes it's better to leave those doors closed. Story 3. The Pact That Never Let Go. I was about 19 when, half joking, I tried to bargain with something beyond this world. I said out loud that I wanted a demon, or whatever might be listening, to take the reins of my life and make me successful, in exchange for a price I'd pay later. I laughed it off, thinking nothing would happen. 12 years have passed since then, and somehow, despite just scraping by with a basic diploma, everything has lined up in my favor. Work opportunities, relationships, luck in daily life, it all fell into place almost like magic. It's like the world itself opened every door I knocked on. But there was a catch. There had to be. I realized it whenever I stepped into a casino or tried my luck on a scratch ticket or even bet a friend $20. No matter what, I lost. Every single time. No small win, no lucky break. It was as if my luck was cursed specifically for gambling. The weirdest part? Whenever I told people at a casino to bet the opposite of me, they walked away winning hundreds. It was like my bad luck made everyone else richer. So far, I keep hoping that losing at gambling is the price I'm paying for everything else going so well. But sometimes, late at night, I can't help but wonder if there's a bigger bill coming due. And that's what scares me the most in life. The most dangerous deals are the ones you make without thinking, the ones you toss out as a joke. 'Cause no matter how quickly you forget them, the darkness never does. Story 4. The Haunted Hoax. Back in high school, there was a group of kids who were obsessed with ghost hunting. They'd sneak into abandoned buildings with their Ouija board, convinced they could reach the other side. They'd tell anyone who would listen that they spoke with spirits, though most of us rolled our eyes and chalked it up to teenage drama. One afternoon, they showed up at school all excited, flashing around a grainy video on one of those old flip phones. In the clip, they were crowded around the Ouija board inside a long-shuttered restaurant with a haunted reputation. The planchette, that pointer piece, suddenly shot across the board as if pulled by an invisible hand. It looked terrifying, and for a moment we all stood there speechless. That same evening, we went to hang out at one of their houses. The guy pulled out his backpack to look for his weed, but it was packed with random stuff and impossible to find anything. So he dumped everything onto the floor, and there it was, the same planchette from the video, complete with fishing line tied neatly around it. We all burst out laughing. The great haunting reveal turned out to be nothing more than a cheap trick. Sometimes the scariest thing isn't the unknown, it's how easily we let ourselves believe the illusion just because it feels thrilling to be afraid. Story 5. The Sleepover Seance. One night during a girls' sleepover, we decided to mess around with a Ouija board. After a while, the energy in the room felt weird, so we tried to end the session by saying goodbye. Planchette refused to move to goodbye, no matter how many times we asked. Feeling uneasy, we all pulled our hands away. The second we did, 2 framed pictures on opposite walls crashed to the floor at once. Our hearts practically jumped out of our chests. At another sleepover, this one with a mixed group of friends, a bunch of us gathered around the board to try it again. As soon as we placed our hands on the planchette, we felt a jolt like an electric current run straight through our arms. Everyone screamed and let go immediately. The night went on, but the mood was tense, like a shadow hanging over the party. Nobody really knew what to say after that, we just felt shaken. When you open doors you don't fully understand, you might invite in more than you ever intended, and not every presence is willing to leave quietly. Story 6. The Final Goodbye. Over 10 years ago, when I was 16, I was in a dark place mentally. I had always believed in the supernatural, the occult, and the idea of spirits, so I spent months trying to connect with the dead through my growing collection of Ouija boards. first it felt harmless, but gradually I began to feel wrong, like something inside me had changed. My mind filled with horrifying, violent thoughts that were completely out of character. I washed my hands until they bled, trying to cleanse myself of the guilt, and feared I was going insane. Terrified, I finally confided in my mom. She urged me to see our family doctor, who diagnosed me with OCD and gave me a prescription for Prozac. While trying to distract myself from everything, I started reading online about Ouija boards and came across an article on demonic oppression. The symptoms fit me perfectly: the crushing negativity, the twisted thoughts. Supposedly, it was a spirit that wasn't inside you but around you, tearing you down bit by bit. The most common way to invite it? Using a Ouija board. Determined to break free, I researched how to dispose of the boards. I smashed them, separated the pieces, and threw them away in different bags, making sure the planchette never touched the board again. The next day was garbage day. I ran to toss out some kitty litter before the truck came, and as I opened the door, I saw my dad standing at the bottom of the stairs, teasing me about the cat mess. I ignored him and ran outside just in time to see the garbage truck take away the boards. When I went back in, the house was dead quiet. I called out for my dad, but there was no answer. Moments later, my mom came home from work. I asked where Dad went, and she looked confused. He wasn't home, he was still at the store. Chills ran through me as I realized whoever I saw standing in our hallway wasn't my father. After that day, every horrible symptom had vanished completely, like flipping a switch. I've never touched a Ouija board since. When you play with forces you can't fully comprehend, you might open yourself to darkness, eager to wear a familiar face. Story 7. The Name It Feared. When my mom was a child, her large Catholic family kept a Ouija board around for what they thought was harmless fun. They'd all play with it together, a bunch of kids laughing while asking silly questions to what they believed were spirits. Most of the time, nothing bad happened, just the usual nonsense. One day, though, they decided to go down the list of each sibling's name, asking the board if it liked them. It answered yes for everyone until it reached my mom. When her name came up, the board spelled out a blunt no. Confused, they asked why, and the planchette spelled because of her name. My mom's name was Mary. For a devout Catholic family, that was a chilling moment. Mary, the mother of Jesus, is revered in their faith as the woman who crushed evil under her feet. In church tradition, demons are said to despise her more than any other human, because through her came the one who defeated them. Even more unsettling, they remembered that just a few days earlier, the board had refused to move at all. Later they realized that day had been August 15th, a feast day honoring Mary in the Catholic calendar, when many believe her protection is strongest. After hearing this story, I never felt even the tiniest desire to touch a Ouija board. Some names hold a power that darkness cannot stand, and that's a power worth respecting. Story 8. The Vanishing Board. Back in high school, I actually bought a Ouija board straight from a toy store. Yeah, a kid's store selling spirit boards, believe it or not. I only used it twice while I had it. The first time was after prom, when my group crashed at my house for a sleepover. We set up in my garage and asked the board some weird questions, including which of us would die first. Gave us an answer. I still remember who it picked, but as far as I know, that friend is alive and well. That night ended without anything really creepy happening. The second time, though, things felt different. I was with 2 girlfriends at a friend's place. We turned off the lights in her laundry room and asked the board questions I can't fully remember. Suddenly, a loud crash came from upstairs. Her mom and younger brother were both home, but everyone was downstairs with us, so no one should have been up there. We ran upstairs and found one of the bedroom windows shut tight, even though it had definitely been left open before. That was enough for us. We were done. Months later, I brought the board along in my car to a night game of kickball with some friends at a local baseball diamond. When I popped open my trunk to show them the board, it was gone. Just vanished. I never saw it again, and I still have no idea how it disappeared. Sometimes things leave our lives in ways we can't explain, and maybe, just maybe, that's for the best. Story 9. The board that woke the house. 3 years ago, I found a really old Ouija board that had belonged to my dad when he was a kid. It was buried in a pile of junk in our garage. I asked if I could keep it, and he didn't see a problem with it. On weekends, I usually stayed over at my mom's place since my parents split up. Her house already had some weird energy, and both of us had felt it before. So naturally, I told my friends we should break out the board at her house on Halloween. I didn't mention it to my mom because she would have completely lost it. That night, nothing happened while we were actually playing. We all kept accusing each other of moving the planchette, laughing it off. Then my mom came in, caught us, and absolutely flipped. She told us to get that damn thing out of her house right then and there. So I handed it off to my boyfriend at the time and thought that would be the end of it. Except after that night, her house went into overdrive. I'd wake up hearing the TV blaring in the middle of the night, go to turn it off, and it wouldn't even be on. It started happening constantly. There was also a touch lamp with 3 brightness settings. Out of nowhere, it would click through the brightness levels or turn off as if someone was playing with it. One night, my mom was out grocery shopping around dusk, and I was chatting with a friend in the kitchen. She asked, "Aren't you afraid of it hearing you?" I laughed and said, "What, the ghost?" "Nah, you get used to it." And right as those words left my mouth, the kitchen lights went off, and on again, twice. We screamed and bolted out to the porch until my mom got home. The last thing I'll share was the scariest. I woke up in the night, again thinking the TV was on, but of course it wasn't. So I went to the bathroom, and as I was sitting there, I looked across to the tub and saw the shimmer in the air, almost like heat waves on a highway. I reached toward it, and the air felt warm, just in that spot. That exact moment, I heard the TV again. I ran back to the living room and checked the clock, 3:04 a.m. So everything had happened right around 3 a.m. I remember praying harder than I had in my entire life. It was absolutely terrifying. It's easy to think a harmless board game couldn't do any real damage, until it cracks open something you can never fully close again. Story 10. Bale's Whisper. You might not believe me, but every word I'm about to tell you is 100% real. When I was 17, I went to a friend's house for a Halloween party. We were too drunk that night to even think about a Ouija board, so we decided to come back another time, sober and with open minds, to try it for real. There was a pretty big group of us, so we took turns instead of everyone crowding around. First, I thought I was talking to a family member through the board, but then something shifted. The energy changed, and this presence felt like it hated me. It spelled out the name Baal. I had no clue who or what that was, so later I looked it up and found out Baal was the name of a demon. We'd all gone to Catholic school, but none of us were really religious, and no one knew any demon names. After that, one of the girls in the group got sick and almost passed out. We all decided to stop and write it off as a weird experience, but for me, the curiosity didn't end there. I ended up using the board with 2 of my closest friends over and over. We claimed we were talking to spirit guides and sometimes other random spirits. Baal, however, would always interrupt. The board even told me that I had a gift, that I could fight off evil, and that Baal hated me for it. Supposedly, I was some kind of force in a spiritual war, and Baal wanted me to end my life before that could happen. I know how crazy this sounds, but that's what kept pulling me back to the board. Felt like I had a mission. One session stands out more than all the others. One of my friends was becoming really sensitive to spiritual emotions, so we decided to try helping spirits move on. We connected with someone who felt furious and hurt, a girl or what seemed to be a girl. But it was off somehow. Suddenly, I heard a scream in my right ear, as clear and sharp as if someone was next to me. I jumped, struggling not to let go of the planchette. I told my friend, "This isn't good." Then another scream echoed, further away but still loud, and a stabbing cold pain shot through my head like an instant ice cream headache. That feeling was familiar. I'd felt it whenever a demon was close. We tried everything to get rid of whatever it was, but nothing worked. We finally had to stop. I had never felt something so angry, so violent, so completely terrifying in my entire life again. Some doors are better left closed, no matter how curious you might feel. Thanks for joining me through these chilling Ouija stories. Remember to subscribe to the channel so you don't miss our next dive into the unknown. I truly appreciate you being here, and until next time, stay safe.